Hello everybody, Dr. Blue here. Now, today's Blue review is going to be the Dishonored 2 Blue review. Never got to play the first game on the channel, but we did get to put this one up. Definitely a lot of good and bad points about this game, and I've really been unsure about what to rate this game for a very long time. It's been a little hectic, especially now since we've set the bar at the 10 with the Shadow of Mordor review, and it's going to be hard to see how other games measure up. But after this Blue review, there won't be any super serious stuff, just more playthroughs starting up, and of course the Secret series you've all been looking forward to. Still don't have a release date for that yet, so could be a short while, but I do want to reiterate the Google form you guys can fill out if you want to help with that series. Link in the description, but enough rambling, let's get on with the review. First impressions of this game reminded me very much of the first game actually. We were falsely accused and lost our entire reputation, and we were outcast and once again sent against the city guard, despite the fact that we were supposed to be royalty and be part of the guard, or at least the head of it. I was actually very disappointed at the intro. I felt it was very much a recycle of the last game's intro, and to be clear, I wasn't happy. And you'll find that that becomes a bit of a theme throughout this review. But starting off the features section, I just want to briefly mention how integrated the tutorial was. It was set up as a training regimen for Emily as part of her daily routine or weekly routine or monthly routine, so they did well making the tutorial feel very immersive. It felt like part of the story, not just something you have to go through to learn the game. And the reason I mention that is because a lot of games find it hard to do that, but this game did that very well. There was also a mechanic that I believe was implemented in this game and not the first one, which is when you got into a sword duel, which is inevitable, you can now punch them if you threw them off balance enough and get a takedown and render them unconscious, which really helped and felt realistic. I mean, if you've got palace level training and combat, be you Emily or Corvo, you should be able to outskill the average city guard. The combat was improved, but I feel only really in this regard. They've all got black hearts, second Madrid. Oh really? You can do that now? Come here, mate, you fucking little bitch, I fucking got you now, yeah. That's cool. I like that. That's cool. I like that you can do that now. That's cool. I did really like the constant references to Jessamine and her death throughout this. Despite her being such a short-lived character, she really had an impact on the story here, and when I realised it was her in the heart, I was just so shocked. I didn't realise we were carrying a piece of her with us all this time, and it just made my heart throb when I found out the poor soul trapped in that piece of dead flesh was Jessamine. And she still decided to stay there to try and help her husband and their daughter until she knew they'd succeed. And that's just so sweet, it breaks my heart, honestly. Oh, the heart! Oh, okay. Because I was literally just about to say, because I got runes and bone charms last time, and I need this thing to track them. Because this is like the heart of a living thing, and it speaks to me. Some woman. Is this her?
It's been so long, and you've been through so much.
That's definitely the voice.
Even as an echo of myself, it's good to know you're there.
Jessamine.
Wait, what?
I can hear are the last
Jessamine.
echoes of your voice. That's enough.
Oh, fuck. No, that's not. Oh my. Right, the heart of the living thing of the mysterious woman who I never recognized is fucking Jessamine's heart. Oh my god. That's kind of dark, man. That's dark and deep. Like shit. Should I have realized that in the first game? Oh my god. So like her heart's been cut out, her soul's been placed inside it, and it's been mechanized. And now it just... Whoa. That's fucked up. The new mechanical soldiers were a very nice replacement for the old tall boys. You get to use all those lethal tools on things that didn't matter if they died. I finally got to let my evil side off the leash a little bit by blowing these things up. And it's better as well, because the tall boys in Dishonored 1, you truly could not eliminate unless you wanted to kill them, and it was just so annoying, especially if you were trying to do a clean hands playthrough. And these things were a nice, but scary replacement. The witches were a new thing too, much like Granny Rags, but younger, faster, and I would say deadlier, but Granny Rags was pretty deadly herself. I also really like the reference to her when we found the leader of the Howlers, Paolo, and he was carrying her dead hand as some sort of artifact. I thought that was really cool. Teleport behind you, like over here, and put you to sleep, rat boy. I got you now. What is that? Ew! Ew! What the? Whoa! 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 fuck? It was a hand! Ew!
Paulo had Granny Rag's hand.
Oh, Granny Rags! Oh shit! I didn't know she was dead! Maybe I killed her in the last game there. I'm not sure. Oh my god! Granny Rags! Oh god, I remember her. It was nice to see some of the first game being referenced in this second game, because God knows the rest of it didn't. These witches had their new powers, like being able to summon gravehounds, release devilish tentacles from the ground, and all the while they seemed to have a little bit of a playful-like manner about it. I think these witches knew the power they had, and they knew they could dominate any mortal they came across. But along with that came their carelessness, which allowed me to defeat them, something Bethesda did well, helping me recognise characters and their traits through my own tuition. I'd learn how to defeat them. Much like the gravehounds, they were a foreign enemy at first, but after observing their behaviour, I quickly learned that smashing their skulls was the way to go. Bring it on, you filthy thing. Die, you bitch. Oh, God. Ugh. Get out of here. I think I got it. I can kill the dogs. And it's fine. Shit, it came back. I got it. I got it. What now? So what does this do? It came back again! Die, motherfucker! Are you gone for good now? The game didn't hold your hand, which I feel was good. They forced you to rely on your own instincts to defeat your enemies. They did this in Dishonored 1 as well, and I feel like they're one of the few companies that can accomplish that. Give you an obvious way to defeat your enemy without telling you. The levels as well were much better in this game. They were very open world and very large, and I felt the game was bettered for it. Although they were a little confusing at the times with no sense of order and being told where to start, I wish they'd been a bit more linear, but I do like the fact that they're bigger. More stuff to do, more people to choke, and more runes to find. I just wish they'd not been as wide as they were, because the first mission really threw me off, especially because how big it was. If it had been just a longer level, and think instead of a wider level, it'd have been much better. But that's just me complaining about map layout. I just wish the levels had been more linear. The rune crafting system and the bone charm crafting system was a nice touch too. I did like the fact of being able to customise your own bone charms. Although I think instead of having to buy that power with runes, that you just used outsider shrines to craft them when you find them. I think this would give you more of an incentive to go out of your way to look for them and talk to the outsider more. Because as I said in the last game, he felt very much absent, but in this game he was thrown into the story more, but I think if you'd have given more incentive to go out and look for those shrines, it'd have been much better. The corrupt bone charms, although bad for you, actually helped in the story when it came to defeating Delilah. A lot of the new stuff added in the game felt like it had a reason to be there. Nothing was irrelevant, and I kind of wish they'd brought stuff back from the old game, so none of that felt irrelevant, but we'll get to that later. Talking about the outside, I really like those little void walks that we get to do. The walks that revealed secrets about the world in which we travelled. I liked that the outsider was thrown a little more into this game, and they definitely did that right. And now, just going back to the missions, they were really detailed and put together so well. Jindosh's mansion, for starters. This huge mansion was a million moving parts that helped you navigate and avoid the guards and mechanical soldiers, and allowed you to sneak up on Jindosh, not letting him know where you were. I even got stuck at one point, and I truly thought I'd have to load it all again, but Bethesda thought of everything in that mission. And they even accounted for my stupidity. Just take a look.
Everything has a purpose. It's all connected, you see.
Oh shit. Oh, where am I? Oh, in the maintenance tunnel, accidentally. Am I gonna get killed? No. But I think I'm trapped. Are you kidding me? I think I'm trapped. Oh, fuck. Oh, well, that's not good. That's not good at all. Oh, wait. There's a button.
Shifting the walls and floors.
Oh my god, Bethesda, you are some clever motherfuckers. I got fucking stuck in somewhere I didn't think I would be. I didn't think, like, oh, this spot, no one can get stuck in here. These motherfuckers even have a way out for that. Oh, man, Bethesda, you are fucking clever. You fucking anticipated everything. And when we did finally come back to Dunwall, I was surprised about how much damage Delilah did in 3 months. The sky was green, the damage looked irreparable, the atmosphere for the boss fight was set. If only it had happened outside instead of in the throne room and in her little portal place. I think it'd have been much better to hold the boss fight outside in Dunwall rather than in her little portal. I'd rather have held the boss fight in a place that mattered, you know, like my hometown, my palace, my capital city, rather than in some world she created that I didn't care about, and the only reason for that world was for me to trap her in it. The blood flies were a good change of pace too. When you entered an infested area, it felt like that. It felt like that word, infested. It truly felt as if I made one wrong move, these blood flies would swarm me and I'd be fucked. So I had to move carefully around their nest and use what I had around me, such as flammable liquids, to ignite and take out these nests. I felt like taking out those nests helped me save lives of regular people that might try to do it themselves. Because those nests felt very much like a death sentence even when I was in them. Now, talking about the black market heists, they were a twist I'd never seen before. You had to be really clever to figure out stuff like that, and when I robbed the old woman, I felt really good about myself. It took some real brains to figure that stuff out, and you had to make connections and all that, and through these little puzzles and clues, and it was really great. But I only ever managed to break into one of these stores because the security was so tight. In all the other stores, I couldn't figure out how to get into them or didn't know I could get into them. And finally, the main feature, the timepiece mechanic. As you'll see in the criticisms, this was arguably the only real choice part of the game, but anything you did in the past could affect things in the future. Going back to plug the leak in the basement, saving Aramis from the event that crippled his mind. Which, by the way, I don't know how Aramis knew that we were friendly in the future. But that mission and that mansion I felt were really focused on and looking at the technical side of it. That must have been a really hard mechanic to put in, but maybe not too different from the choice mechanic that should have been present. That mission was just godlike, and I truly believe that that part was probably the best thing about this game. There we go. Did I transition? Oh no, that's forever in here because no one ever picked it up because no one ever cleaned this thing. Oh, that's kind of cool. Well done, Bethesda. You are fucking clever, motherfuckers. No one ever picked it up because no one ever came to fix the leak, so it's always been there. That's so cool. You know how cool that is? No one ever picked it up. But if I go in the past now, it's going to be there, right? Oh, come on. Ah, here we go. It's going to be in there still. Yeah. Oh my god, Bethesda are really clever, you know. But unfortunately, we're back to old habits with a longer criticism section. I can't help it. When I see a game fail in places, I just can't help but suggest improvements, and this game dropped the ball in a lot of places. Let's talk about Alexei Mayhew, the captain of the Watch, whose only other link to the Dishonored story at all is the comics, which I didn't even know existed. Maybe that's bad research on my part, or maybe they didn't promote them enough, but this character seemed to come out of nowhere and only stayed in the game for a few minutes. She's pretty much almost irrelevant, and it didn't faze me one bit when she died. Sorry, Bethesda, I know you tried to make her seem important with Corvo's letter to her parents, but you just didn't do it for me. Didn't know who she was, where she came from. Only thing I knew is that she was captain and killed almost immediately. Had that captain been someone we knew, let's say Captain Kerno from the last game, now if it had been him, I might have cared, and if the game read that he died in the last game, you could have put Mayhew there then, but no, and you know why? Because they couldn't be bothered putting in any kind of choice from the last game. Instead, they just wrote him off in a comic saying that he was enjoying retirement with his wife. But even then, couldn't he come back when he found out Corvo was dethroned and Emily was frozen and Dunwall was in turmoil? I mean, this game is set 15 years later, and in Dishonored 1, his age isn't specified, but he's said to be in his 30s. So worst case scenario, he was 39 and now he's 54. He could have still easily been leading the Watch at that age and even capable enough to fight. Another potential choice option they could have included, and I really don't know why they didn't. I really feel that that was a missed opportunity. Speaking of missed opportunities, what about that crown killer, eh? Her real identity was Dr. Alexandra Hypatia, but why couldn't she be a character from the last game? Maybe Lady Boyle? You know, that lady in the red dress that you either kill or spare in the ball party mission? She must have been pretty annoyed, because if you decide to spare her life, you give her over to Lord Brisby, who was her obsessive stalker. She was taken to his island estate and marked as a criminal, so I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say she got really angry with Corvo and decided to embrace the public marking her as a criminal and become the Crown Killer. There's so many things they could have brought in from the last game they could have brought in here, but I'm starting to get the feeling that they didn't do it because they're lazy, maybe? My main argument against this game is that a lot of the story was based from the DLC from the last game. The DLC it's based from is The Knife of Dunwall, where you played as Dowd, so there were supposedly a lot of hints throughout the story about this last game, but I didn't get them because I didn't play the DLC. I didn't recognise all of the signs, and a lot of this build-up was so unfamiliar to me. In any good mystery novel, you introduce the villain right at the very start, but you don't let the audience know who it is. I'm a strong believer in hiding the bad guy in plain sight throughout the whole thing, making the audience aware of him and aware of what's going on, but keep them from piecing it together. Rise, Son of Rome did this really well with their Damocles twist, but this game didn't. The big reveal at the end was supposed to be Megan is this twisted Billy Lurk, but because this is all based from the DLC, it felt to me like that big reveal meant nothing. Okay, you're Billy Lurk. So what? And personally, for me, them basing the story off of a DLC was a really bad move. Let me talk about a game that does this really well for comparison's sake. Mass Effect 3, at the beginning of the game, you get discharged from the Alliance. If you don't play the DLC, you get discharged because you were with Cerberus. If you do play the DLC, then you're discharged because you blew up the Batarian system. Either way, if you don't play the DLC, they account for that. And they don't base the whole thing off of the DLC. They base it off the story, and if you play the DLC and the game sees that, they'll include that as well. And I feel that Dishonored just really dropped the ball on this one. And can we talk about Delilah? And how she actually came out of nowhere and was able to seize the throne with no proof of identity? Hell, I wasn't actually sure she was related to Jessamine until about halfway through the story. She was just allowed to throw us out immediately without question, but did kill any resistance. She was a good villain, no doubt, and the game didn't hold off on her backstory, but I felt like she was thrown in as a villain, and it wouldn't have hurt to mention her in the last game. Like, if there was any kind of planning with this game, they could have mentioned her a couple of times in the last game. Maybe through Emily, saying that when Jessamine was killed, she could stay with her rather than Corvo. I mean, obviously Corvo would be like, hell nah, but still, I would have liked it if she didn't just come out of the blue. I like the fact that you could play as both Emily or Corvo, but what I think would have been way more interesting is at the start, when Delilah draws Corvo's powers away from him, that she just kills him right there, and we're forced to play as Emily. That would have been a lot better for me. It would have forced me to use the new powers and really give us a sense of purpose with a strong character death. Because at the start of the game, I'm already expecting her to kill him when she takes his powers, but for whatever reason, she stops. I think it would have been way better, because why take his powers and not kill him? I feel that the game just did that so we'd have to acquire all our powers over again.
Ah, Dad, help me.
What the fuck? No. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Dad, are you okay?
And although I did play as Corvo, and that's entirely my fault, I feel that Corvo should have got some new powers. After having them for so long, you'd think he'd have greater access to more of the powers or learn some new ones. Especially as Delilah had access to a whole range of them and her witches. We just got the same ones from the last game, and looking at Emily's abilities, they didn't seem hugely interesting to me, and powers like Far Reach were just a reskin of Blink but working in a different way. I admit it's my fault for not going to new powers, but I wanted to play as Corvo, man, and I felt like I was punished for that. I was punished for wanting to play as Corvo, so I didn't get to experience these new powers. But if they'd have killed him off like I mentioned earlier, I'd be forced to play as Emily. I can appreciate them trying to give us different people to play as and giving us options, but I think it'd have been better if they'd just forced our hand. Although the dialogue did account for who you were playing as, be it Corvo or Emily, the characters referred to you and you weren't just some general person. So kudos for that. I also felt like my choices from the last game had almost no impact here. The people I saved, the things I did, I felt that didn't matter here. Piero Joplin was nowhere to be seen. Loyalists that I kept alive from the last game were nowhere to be seen. I would have liked a bit more reference to the last game rather than just Dowd. And the thing about Dowd is, they still don't clarify throughout the whole campaign whether he survived or not. So even if you spared Dowd in the last game or killed him, makes absolutely no impact whatsoever. Some of the choices from the last game are said to have affected the story, but where did those choices come from? I'll tell you where, Eric. The DLC! But not that matters anyway, because in the DLC you can make the choice whether to kill Billy Lurk or not, but clearly that doesn't matter here because Megan Foster turns up anyway. A complete cop-out of referencing the player's choices in the last game, and I'm really not happy with the story. Not at all. They also didn't clarify whether Samuel died or not, An old face from the first game would have been great to see in this last game. Granted, he probably died because he was so old, but a visit to his grave wouldn't have hurt. He was barely mentioned in this game after being such a main character in the last one. I feel they just made the first game, made the DLC, then they loved the DLC so much more and focused on that rather than the first game, which is disappointing. Just a little bit of a nitpick, I don't really like that Corvo's face was so public, especially after them going through all that effort to hide it in the previous game. But that's maybe just a personal preference. It's not really something I can put towards the actual review. I just wanted to mention it. And I know the plague is gone, but I'm kind of saddened by the Weeper's disappearance. I know they faded out with the plague and all, and they tried to replace these with Nest Keepers, but they weren't nearly as scary. The Weepers had this saying that was reiterated throughout the whole story, blood from the eyes, giving them that scare factor that used to scare me back in that game. The flooded district was awful in Dishonored 1. I hated that district, but only because it scared me so much, which was a good effect they had on me. Even on low chaos, you found groups of them in the sewer, in the flooded district, and then the dark alleys in groups that you'd have to go through or go around. And in this game, their replacement, the Nest Keepers, felt almost like the outsider in Dishonored 1. They were pushed to the side and pushed out of relevancy. I looked forward to seeing them for most of the story, and I was really underwhelmed when I did encounter them. Which, I might add, wouldn't have happened if I didn't go out of my way to get all the runes and bow charms. Other players who don't really care about runes and stuff, or don't need them, won't really ever encounter these Nest Keepers, which is a shame. And I think maybe the scariest thing about this game was Grim Alex when her eyes glowed yellow from across the room, but that only lasted 2 seconds because I beat her so quickly. Oh shit! Look at how creepy she looks. Here we go. There we go. How's that feel, bitch? And a thing to note is that the only Nest Keepers I saw in this game all look exactly the same. That could be just because I encountered so few, but I feel like I encountered them all. If anyone sees Nest Keepers in a different appearance, let me know, but I didn't. The powers were okay. They were just the same as the last game, but as I said, that's because I play as Corvo. But I feel that they worsened dark vision. The footsteps of the guards' patrols wouldn't always show, and objects for us to find always appeared in white instead of green. Not sure why they changed that. It was much easier to see in green, and I think especially with this game having a lot of sunny and almost desert-like levels, where the sun was very prevalent, I feel that these objects should have stayed green. I should be able to see his footstep patterns with dark vision, but that doesn't always work. He's definitely coming up here. I should be able to see his footsteps pattern, but it doesn't always show that. It's really annoying. It's so inconsistent. Throughout this story, I kept waiting for that huge curveball that would set us back. In Dishonored 1, it was the betrayal from the Loyalists, but in this game, that didn't really happen. It felt very much like a straight run from getting betrayed to winning almost every scenario until we beat Delilah. And the boss fight? A bit disappointing, no epic scene. In the last game, if you did it in low chaos, the main villain, Admiral Havelock, admits his defeat and just speaks in his defeated tone, which is a bit undramatic, but in the other chaos modes, he's out on the edge of the tower, holding Emily in a chokehold, it's raining, and he's giving this huge rush speech, and it felt like such a life and death moment. But this boss battle, you fight her clones, and then you fight her, and it just feels so dry to me. I would have liked maybe a little bit of an epic scene, because I felt like the chaos in this game didn't affect it at all.
Stay where you are, Corvo, or I jump.
Corvo! Save me!
What? He won't. Will you, Corvo? You had your chance to be a hero. In a minute, this will just be another bloody mess you've left behind.
And looking at the differences the chaos makes, a lot of it is just like an increase in the town guard, an increase in blood flies and stuff, but I felt like it didn't affect the ending at all. Like, I felt like Dunwall was still in ruins anyway, even though I did it in low chaos. The witches were everywhere, the sky was green, and the throne room was encapsulated in all this dark, nasty witch stuff. And despite the fact I did it in low chaos, without killing anyone, I felt Delilah was still as confident as she would have been in high chaos. The only thing I think that affects is whether Emily or Corvo dies, which I admit is a good part. You can actually fuck up so much that your partner dies. So if you're playing as Corvo and you fuck up so much, Emily will just come out of that stone thing dead, which is pretty fucking cool. I didn't do that personally because I didn't fuck up that much. I did fuck up in places, but not that much. So that's really the only thing that does change, but a lot of it felt like it didn't. I would talk more about the assassination targets and how they play out, but there wasn't really anything that huge that really stood out to me. Overall, I really want to give this game a good review because the first game was just so good, but the choices haven't been followed up on, and they based all of the story off of the DLC, which was really bad move, especially for people who hadn't played it like myself. I also feel there's probably a lot in this Blue review that people will feel I missed. Feel free to let me know in the comments, but I think I covered everything I deemed important. I feel that this game has failed to take its place as a definitive sequel that's supposed to improve on the last game, but it just seems like it got worse. So for a true rating, and I feel a lot of people are probably going to hate me for this, I'm going to have to give it a 5. Believe me when I say I want to give this game a good rating because I really love the first one. I know that this score is only equal to Halo 5, and a game you might feel is a lot worse than Dishonored 2. But this game lets itself down in that regard because it attempts so many good things but only gets through with a few of them. Being a choice-driven game, you have to follow up on choices, and this is why that rating is so harsh. This game set a precedent of what it was supposed to be and failed to get there. Had this franchise been a non-choice-driven game, that might have got a higher rating than this. But it simply let itself down on the things that it's supposed to accomplish. It's not a bad game, it does some things really well, like the levels and the time mechanic, but I feel that the time mechanic just took over the whole game, and choices only mattered in that mission and that mission alone. In conclusion, I do advise if you're going to set a lot of expectations with your game, you need to follow up on them. Making a choice game and not letting the choices have an impact just destroys this game for me, and that's why I've rated it so low. I wanted to give this game a higher rating, but I feel like choices only matter in that mission alone, and not from the first game into this game. And it feels like a game on its own, not a sequel. There are almost no references to the last game, and that really bugs me, and I hate to rate it this low because I did enjoy it. And all those reviews saying 8, 9, 10 out of 10 clearly haven't examined this game hard enough. I think many people forget that this is a choice game, and the experience that you get is good, but the experience we were promised is just absent. I feel that if a lot of those reviewers look at this game as hardly as I have, and examine every little detail like I have, they'll probably come to a similar conclusion. And when you truly examine the gritty details of this thing, you just see that it just fails as a game. And although I've rated this game so low, I can actually recommend it, because although it falls flat on its face with a lot of things, I did enjoy the experience. It's not a bad game by far, but it just doesn't accomplish what I expected it to, or what it says it does. As I said earlier, it's a good experience, but it's not what we were expecting, and it's not what we were promised. I truly feel bad about this review, but I feel that I've really looked at this game as hardly as I can, and I feel that I've probably examined it more than most people expect me to. I just really want to reiterate before I go, if you look at this game as hardly as I have and you examine every little detail of this game, you will find yourself being let down with a lot of things. I feel that a lot of these people took this game at face value and just said 10 out of 10 because they looked at the prequel. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed this Blue review. If you liked it, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. I've been Dr. Blue. You've been my audience. And I'll see you guys next time.
I'm blue.